Blood eagle. The blood eagle is a method of execution described in several Old Norse sagas and later medieval texts. According to these accounts, the victim's back was cut open and the ribs were pulled outward to resemble wings. The lungs were then drawn out through the opening. Historians still debate whether this practice was truly carried out, or if it was partly symbolic storytelling meant to emphasize revenge and brutality in Viking culture. Regardless of the uncertainty, the story of the blood eagle became one of the most infamous images associated with Viking-era punishments, and is often discussed as an example of how extreme rituals could appear in early historical. Keelhauling. Keelhauling was a naval punishment used by some European fleets during the 17th and 18th centuries. A sailor accused of serious misconduct was tied with ropes and dragged beneath the hull of a ship from one side to the other. The underside of wooden ships was often covered in barnacles and rough surfaces that could tear the skin. Even if the person survived the physical injuries, there was also the danger of drowning during the process. While it was meant as a severe disciplinary measure rather than always a certain execution, many victims did not survive the ordeal. Scaphism. Scaphism is an ancient execution method described in some Greek historical writings about the Persian Empire. In these accounts, the victim was placed between two wooden boats or hollowed logs with only the head, hands, and feet exposed. They were force-fed milk and honey, and the mixture was also spread on their body. The person was then left in a marshy area where insects were attracted to the sweetness. Over time, the individual would suffer from dehydration, infection, and insect bites. Many historians debate the accuracy of these descriptions, but the story has been repeated for centuries as an example of extreme ancient punishments. Lingchi. Lingchi, often translated as death by 1,000 cuts, was a form of execution used in imperial China for particularly serious crimes such as treason. During the process, the condemned person was tied to a wooden frame, while a series of controlled cuts were made to the body over time. The intention was both physical punishment and public humiliation, as the execution often took place in front of spectators. Lingchi remained part of the legal system for centuries before it was officially abolished in the early 20th century as China began reforming its laws. Brazen Bull. The Brazen Bull is a device said to have been used in ancient Sicily during the rule of the tyrant Phalaris. According to ancient accounts, the device was a hollow bronze statue shaped like a bull. A person condemned to death was placed inside the structure while a fire was lit beneath it. As the metal heated up, the individual inside would suffer from the extreme temperature. Pipes inside the bull were designed so that screams echoed through the statue in a way that resembled the sound of a roaring animal. Some historians believe the story may have been exaggerated over time, but it remains one of the most well-known legends of ancient punishment devices. Crucifixion. Crucifixion was a method of execution widely used in the ancient world, especially by the Roman Empire. The victim was attached to a large wooden cross or stake, often with nails or ropes through the wrists and feet. The person would be left suspended for hours or sometimes days. Death usually came slowly through exhaustion, dehydration, and the difficulty of breathing while hanging in that position. Crucifixion was meant not only as punishment, but also as a public warning to others. It became one of the most recognizable forms of execution in history, especially because of its connection to religious and historical events in the Roman era. Impaling. Impaling is an execution method in which a long stake or pole is driven through the body of the victim. In some historical cases, the stake was carefully inserted in a way that avoided vital organs at first, allowing the person to remain alive for a period of time. The victim would then be raised upright with the stake planted in the ground. This form of punishment appeared in several regions throughout history and was sometimes used as a display to intimidate enemies. One of the most commonly associated figures with this practice is Vlad III of Wallachia, who reportedly used impalement against invading forces and criminals during the 15th century. Garrote. The garrote was an execution device used in parts of Europe, especially in Spain, for several centuries. The condemned person sat in a chair with a metal collar placed around the neck. A screw mechanism behind the chair was tightened until it compressed the neck and spinal cord. In some cases, the pressure caused rapid death by breaking the neck, while in others it slowly cut off breathing. The garrote remained part of the Spanish legal system into the 19th and 20th centuries before it was eventually abandoned as execution methods changed. Drawing and quartering. Drawing and quartering was a punishment used in medieval England for people convicted of high treason. The condemned individual was first dragged through the streets to the execution site. After execution, the body was divided into several parts. These pieces were often displayed publicly in different locations as a warning against rebellion. The practice reflected how seriously governments treated acts considered threats to the state. Over time, such punishments were gradually removed from legal systems as ideas about justice and human rights changed. Boiling. Boiling as a form of execution was used in some parts of Europe during the late medieval period. In these cases, the condemned person was placed into a large container of liquid that was heated over a fire. Sometimes water was used, while in other cases oil or tar was mentioned in historical records. The punishment was extremely rare, but became known after a few high-profile cases, particularly during the reign of King Henry VIII in England. Eventually, the law allowing this form of execution was repealed as legal practices began to shift toward less extreme punishments.